Redditors, who were the final people to see a missing person. Have they been found? And how has their disappearance affected you? Back in junior year of high school for me, I knew a guy who was in his senior year, and I knew him because we worked together at a school job we did. While working we were talking, and he was telling me about how he's gonna go hang out with his friends after work, etc. Didn't think much of it. Next day it's reported that he was killed in a drive-by shooting. This was 2 weeks before he graduated high school. I was the last person who had talked to him before he got into his car to drive to wherever he went. Not only myself, my school, and especially his close friends became devastated, and following was the proper things such as a funeral and such. During graduation ceremony his name was announced and everyone was asked for a moment of silence as his father walked down the aisle in his position. Truly saddening. It's been 2 years almost now, and his Instagram and other social media are still up. I occasionally pull it up from time to time to look at it. Miss you, bud. A very close family friend that was dealing with the loss of his oldest son, who had committed suicide a few weeks earlier. It was hard on all of us, as they both worked with us on our farm, and I had known the son and the father since I was 3 to 4 years old. He came over for dinner on a Sunday night. He was supposed to come back over Monday morning to help out with farm work. It would be his first day back working since the loss of his son. 4 days go by, and he never showed up. We figured it was because he was dealing with his personal drama and didn't read much into it. Although we did reach out several times and went by his house on the second day since we'd seen him. That Friday we were informed by his ex-wife, who was contacted by authorities, that he had killed himself in his truck several miles outside of town in the middle of a field. He had left our home Sunday night and ended his life just an hour or so later. I sometimes feel like our family did not do enough to console him, and that maybe we didn't realize just how much he was struggling in life. It weighs on me occasionally, especially around the time where both of the tragedies occurred. It was a great loss to me, and I have never properly dealt with the emotions. Edit. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate everyone responding so kindly. It means the world to have support in a situation I usually fight alone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Edit again. I'm sorry for annoyingly responding to each comment, but I genuinely thank you all so much. I joined Reddit for fun. I never thought I could receive such support and encouragement from strangers. I thank you all so much for this. Yes, he was found. Back in high school, a guy I knew disappeared, and the cops interviewed my friends, and apparently a note was found on his bed that read, "Give us $1,000 or you'll never see your son again," and that's all it said. No contacts or drop-off location or anything. They found the guy 3 days later walking around the mall. He had been hiding behind an Albertson dumpster the entire time and got bored when he decided to walk around a nearby mall. Idiot. When I was in my early 20s I was friends with a group of brothers, one of whom was one of my girlfriend's roommates. On New Year's Eve they threw a party at their apartment. The next morning I was taking the train home and happened to end up on the train with the youngest brother. He was acting normal, but I remember saying to him, "See you later," when getting off the train, and him smirking and saying yeah. A few days later, one of the brothers says they haven't heard from him since the party. I told him about the train interaction, and it turned out I was the last person to have seen him. No one else had seen him since the party, including his roommates. They eventually found a note in his apartment that read something like, "I'm fine, but don't try to find me." Several weeks go by with no word from the younger brother. I'm cooking dinner with my girlfriend, and there's a knock on the door. Guess who shows up but the missing brother. He had run away to the Dominican Republic without telling anyone to see what life was like there, ran out of money, and returned. Last person to see him before he disappeared. First person to see him when he returned. My childhood best friend is currently missing since August 30th. I live in a different state now, but my last text to him was about classic WoW and playing it together. I still don't know how it's affecting me, but I miss him so much. He went missing on a hike, so my only message to people is please try not to hike solo. If you are, please let multiple people know of your plans. I have a friend whose dad did that, but it's a little weird. He found out his wife was having an affair. He emptied his personal bank account, took his dog and backpacking equipment, He told his friends he was going to finish the portion of the Pacific Crest Trail we never finished by himself. But he booked a flight to Alaska. I think he is probably still out there living in a cabin off on his own. That or suicide. I don't know if I was the last person to see her alive, but one of the last. Lori Hacking and her husband Mark Douglas Hacking came into my cell phone store 2 days before she found out about how he had lied to her about pretty much everything in his life and he killed her and their unborn child. They were both awesome people. She was happy and bubbly, and he was a really nice guy. I came in from the weekend and there was a missing poster on our store door for Lori. It was really weird seeing that she was missing after just selling them cell phones and a plan. I reached out to the number and told them that her and Mark had been into the store 2 days before she went missing. I had to meet with the local police and an FBI agent. They had to look at the paperwork we had done, the video for the store, and interview all of the employees. The weirdest thing is that Mark came into the store after killing her and asked me a question about their cell phone plan after killing his wife and dumping her body. One of my best friends found out his wife was cheating on him. He went ballistic, grabbed his gun, and took off to parts unknown. Both the police and I went looking for him for several hours, but couldn't find him. Eventually, he texted me saying he loved me and where we could find his body, which we did. I was the last person he ever spoke to in life. Next year will be the 10th anniversary of his death, and while admittedly I don't think about him every single day, I do think about him and that horrible day a few times each month. Worse, I live in a rural area where lots of people have the same build and wear much of the same clothing he did, so I will occasionally see close doppelgangers of him walking around and it never fails to flood me with emotion. My friend also ruined Across the Universe by the Beatles. He and I were big fans of the group and that was his favorite song of theirs, so it got played a lot at his viewing. Now, I can't listen to it. The last time I happened to be watching a movie that featured the song, I started crying without even realizing I'd started. You could look at it this way too. He was battling with what happened with his son for weeks. It was probably the most painful and intensely emotional time of his life. It's likely he had decided he was going to end it days before he had dinner with you all. He chose to spend his last moments on Earth with you guys. Probably because he loved your family and felt at peace there. You guys were the calm in the storm. Try not to beat yourself up over it. Edit, my first gold. Thank you so much. When I was 13 I went to visit my auntie on a whim. She lived down the hill and we were extremely close. I was late for dinner and I knew my mum would be mad, but when I walked past my auntie something was screaming at me to go inside. My auntie kept saying she was so happy to see me and was dressed up like she was going on a date or something, which I found strange because she was only hanging round at home. We chatted for a bit and was saying some very odd things. Tell such and such this, tell so and so I love them. She told me to take whatever I wanted from her house and her pantry and fridge were completely emptied out, which I thought was weird. The whole thing made my hair stand up, but I was just a kid and didn't understand what was going on. When I eventually left to go home she teared up, gave me a big hug, said she loved me and was so glad I came by. The next day no one in the family could reach her. The curtains were all pulled at her house and the phone line was cut. After eventually breaking in, my grandma discovered she had hung herself in the closet. Everyone in the family wondered why she didn't leave a note. After 3 years of repressing that memory it resurfaced, and I realized that I was the note. Fucked me up for a long time. Sounds like you were her pillar of hope. She loved you very much, and your relationship most likely kept her hanging to life for quite a while after first starting planning her suicide. You brought some joy to her life. You weren't a suicide note. People don't always leave notes. There isn't always a convoluted story behind suicide. Sometimes it's very random and comes after someone has lost all hope and any power to keep going. If she knew you would come to this conclusion, I'm sure she would have left a very detailed note. I assume she wanted her suffering to end. She would have never wanted her death to burden you in that way. Sorry if I'm offending you with my theories, but it really sounds she loved you like you were her own child. She cared for you deeply and would probably wanted you to have the best life possible, and thinking you're her suicide note, in some sense, just doesn't feel something she would do. You were just the last person to bring her little bit of joy in a life filled with sorrow. Just focus on your good times together. This person didn't go missing, but I was the last person to see him alive. My best friend and I were drinking on my porch in college. It was about 3:30 am, and I told him I was going to bed because I had to work the next day. He begged me to have another drink with him, but I insisted that I needed to get to sleep. The next morning I woke up to my roommate screaming for me to come downstairs. I ran down, and my friend had hung himself while sitting down under the porch railing. We cut him down, did CPR even though we knew he was gone already. It was the most traumatic things I've witnessed and had really affected my life. I pieced together things from the night, like the rope he hung himself with was his friend's dog leash that we searched for a long time for and could not find. We think he hid the leash as a premeditated event. Just thinking that he begged to spend just a little more time with me, but I refused really hurts. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Since this is getting a lot of attention, I want to say that if you notice any odd behavior from friends or jokes about someone harming themselves, please take it seriously. Oftentimes it is a cry for help. I'm saddened to hear of so many of you who have had to deal with the same thing. I would hug you all if I could. Please reach out to me if you need to chat. Love.